In the words of Ecclesiastes, a season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven. A time for dancing, a time for wailing, a time for birthing, a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking, a time for losing. The time of mourning is a complicated time filled with many emotions and memories, both bitter and sweet. We begin our service with the recitation of psalms and prayers, thus linking Millicent's life with the 3,000-year-old tradition of the people of Israel and the eternity of God. If you wish, I invite you to join me in the recitation of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. Restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Wow. Goodness sakes alive. I hope it's warm enough there. Huh. Whew.
When great trees fall, by Maya Angelou. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder, lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. And when great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly, our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory suddenly sharpened examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid and promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality bound to them takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Space is filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same. They whispered to us. They existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. I know Danny wanted to share some words on behalf of the family. For those of you who would like to say something and haven't yet kind of told me, following Danny, if you want to share a word or two, it doesn't have to be profound or thesis driven. You should feel free to do so. Danny?
I wrote this like the day that Grandma died. Absolutely heartbroken that my grandma, Millicent Kleinman, my mom's mom, died this morning. She was 94. I so wish I could have seen her one more time before she passed. I would have told her how much I loved her and how much her love and support has made me the person I am today. When I was a little boy, I had learning disabilities, but she always believed in me, always. Her belief in me never wavered. And when she thought I wasn't reaching my potential, she would tell me. She always told me what I needed to hear, not what I wanted to hear. I so wish she could have lived to see my future children. Above all else, she believed in family. She had 3 children, 6 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren, and she loved all of us so much. As I grew older and hadn't settled down, she grew increasingly concerned. But she was so happy when I married Catherine. Wherever she is right now, she will be so happy when Catherine and I start a family. My grandma was a beautiful woman. When she was younger, she literally looked like a movie star. But beyond that, she was just so strong, so intelligent, and so dignified. The best way I could describe her is to compare her to the matriarch in Downton Abbey, except no one would ever laugh at my grandma. The most dignified person I've ever known. My grandma lived a long and full life. I'm happy she is at peace right now. My heart is broken, but it's also filled with her love. I'm going to Cleveland now to be with my family, including my grandpa, the lucky guy that my grandma chose to marry more than 70 years ago. He is about to turn 100. I can't wait to give him a big hug and tell him how sorry I am. I love my grandpa so much. And I'm so sad that he's alone right now, but he's not alone. At times like this, I don't really know what to do with my feelings. I think the only thing to do is to promise my grandmother that I'll live a full and meaningful life, just like she did, making the most of every day, cherishing and growing my family, and leaving the world a better place. I love you, Grandma.
He's coming over. Oh, that was marvelous. Thank you. Well, I don't have anything profound to say because, unless maybe I do, and the most profound thing I could possibly say is that I love you, Mom, and we all love you, and there's nothing more profound to know that you loved me more than anything in the world, just like you loved everybody here. As much as love could spread, you were able to spread it everywhere. And I'm gonna miss you. And I don't know when my tears will end, but I still cry. I still cry for my brother in the middle of a movie or something. And I know I will continue to cry for him and for Mom forever and ever at different points in my life. But and that's it.
Can I say something?
Of course.
Giving honor to my higher power. I just wanted to say that this lady was a jewel. She was a jewel. She loved her family. She loved to be around people. She loved cooking. She taught me a whole lot about life. She taught me how to cook. She taught me how to love my husband. She loved every one of y'all. Most of all, she wants y'all to be strong. She wants y'all to love each other, be a family, support each other, and wrap your arms around each other and love each other until the day you leave here, because family is everything. I don't have my mom, but I accept her as my mom and him as my father. And I love all of you, and I enjoy being around you. But y'all have to come together and be together and put your arms around each other and support each other. Because family is everything in this world. I love you, Millicent. I always will keep you in my heart. But she was a jewel. She was the greatest, one of the greatest women I have met in my life. God bless all of you. Keep your family together, love each other, and be one. Thank you.
Come here. Barbara, come here to Dad. Don't get up there. Barbara's coming to you. Don't get up there.
Oh, that was just marvelous, honey. Thank you. Love you. Thank you. Love you.
That was just beautiful. I felt fortunate enough to have known Millicent a little bit, and enough to know that when we talked, I felt like I was talking with royalty. It was, I felt like I was standing up a little more straight, and I should tune in a little more sharply, and that this was a person who had something important to say, and that I was very lucky to have this moment to talk to her. Even if it was a fleeting moment, there was something about her, graceful and beautiful, and demanded one's attention. You put down everything when you talk with Millicent. In this week's Torah portion, God instructs Moses to tell the Israelites that in every 7th year, the land shall observe a Sabbath of complete rest. Fields should not be sown and vines should not be pruned. This biblical charge found in the book of Leviticus is extraordinary in its respect for the earth. We always hear about we should rest on the Sabbath as people, but to actually demand that the land rests, that's something new and different. The message is that all living things require respite, a time to renew, a time to reap what has been. As it has been famously written in the book of Ecclesiastes, and I read just a little bit earlier, time to reap what has been sown. And today, we reflect and take in everything that Millicent Kleinman has sown throughout her almost 95 years of life. In Old French, Millicent means brave strength, and that translation feels quite apt for a woman who lived with fierce purpose and intention. Millicent was a woman of substance, smart, graceful, driven, skilled in the culinary and gardening arts, but she was equally adept at talking politics with Aaron, anyone in the family. Theater, world affairs, there were no limits. To family, it was a privilege, as it was to a rabbi, to be part of her world, even in any small way. For when you existed in her orbit, you had membership into an exclusive club. The privileges were many, but most of all, you secured her everlasting devotion, her unsolicited advice, and unconditional love. Alan was blessed to be the recipient of that love for over 7 decades, a distinction few could ever claim. Your bond, Alan, with Millicent was instigated by your dad and Millicent's uncle. And as you like to say, he said, I have a niece. I have a niece at the University of Michigan. Alan got on a bus bound for Ann Arbor, found his way to her dorm, right? You were dropped off in a field. This story is legend. And you discovered Millicent to be, as you said, a lovely looking lady. And I have a feeling that was an understatement. That first meeting set forth into motion many more trips to Millicent's home state. And Alan, you reminisced about the engagement ring that you would keep in your pocket as you waited for just the right time to propose in that hotel restaurant. You wanted to make sure that you got the timing just right, to make sure that you got a positive response from your bride-to-be. Alas, Millicent said yes. And the two of you got married at her home synagogue in Detroit. And while she left U of M to move to Cleveland, Millicent eventually attended college right here, Western Reserve, where she studied drafting, design. She eventually obtained a degree. And in fact, she went to school while she was a young mother. A major multitasker she was. Nancy still remembers how she worked late into the night. Millicent took Spanish too. And Nancy, who was also a Spanish student as a kid, was humbled to discover that her multitasking mother had absorbed the language with greater facility than she had. And it was clear, Millicent had intellect, smarts. Lindsay remarked about her mother's smarts too, noting how she read 2 newspapers every day, a lifelong learner, and she'd readily share her opinion about the state of the world. Most recently, she had strong views about our nation's last president. And indeed, Millicent Kleinman did not mince words. And that was echoed by her grandchildren and by their spouses. All admired Millicent's brave strength, but also made sure to brace themselves for unfiltered comments and questions about anything and everything. Thankfully, Blake, Jess, Danny, Jennifer, Michael, and Gabrielle took it all in stride. And eventually their spouses, Sevda, Amy, Catherine, and Jason, were welcomed into the fold as Millicent's own. Along their wonderful journey of partnership, Alan, you, and Millicent traveled around the world, sometimes with good friends, Acapulco, leaving your kids at home to their devices. Somehow they survived.
I didn't like it.
And then the family trips, spring breaks, travels to international destinations, plus a cross-country endeavor in that wonderful vehicle we used to call the station wagon. To travel with Millicent and Alan was not a leisurely enterprise. It wasn't R&R. When you were up early in the day, you were ready for new adventures and new learnings. And Millicent, she would make you, Alan, make sure to prepare you with the context and background and anticipation of anything you were doing, including the shows you would see right here in Cleveland. Blake remembers being told on one excursion that this is not a sleeping trip. And Jen remembers the special time she had with her grandparents in London. There was no rest for the weary. That said, Jen still treasures the memories and the distinct pleasure of staying up late, eating a steak sandwich and feeling like a grown-up as she developed an individual relationship with her grandparents. How lucky you were, how lucky any of us are when we're able to do that, to forge that relationship that's separate and distinct from any other relationship. Jesse remembers his grandmother as a doer, always active. She was forthright and would unabashedly impart words of wisdom like, if you want to do something, you'll make time for it. She would also be assertive with all her grandchildren about the merits of proper deportment, etiquette. Her sometimes sharp words were only dispatched because of how she viewed her role as a parent, grandparent, and great-grandparent. She loved you all, was proud of who you were, who you are. Using today's terms, you were her squad. And she only wanted all of you to realize your best selves. That's why she said those things. That's why she asked those questions. That's why she made those comments. Michael understood this and felt a special kinship with Millicent due to their love of cooking. Even though he had developed advanced skills as a professional, she was still instructing, no, not this way. And Michael, ever deferential, didn't mind that she would ask about his love life too. Millicent was a tremendous cook and baker, taking after the skills her mother had displayed earlier on. But Alan, you said her mother's cooking was 4-star, but her cooking was 5-star. She learned to cook on her own, developing an incredible brisket recipe and highly anticipated Thanksgiving dinners, not to mention so much more. She was a 5-star gardener, once profiled for her skills in the Cleveland Jewish News. And of everything she achieved, Millicent was most proud of the legacy she leaves behind, and she would leave behind. Nancy and Lindsay have learned and observed their mother throughout the years. And now, as we think about letting the ground lie, reaping what has been sown, reflecting, they know, you know, that what your mother has meant to your lives, how she's informed who you are, what you do, how you parent, throughout the inevitable vagaries of life, the medical challenges, the death of their beloved Reed. May his memory be a blessing, and so much more. Millicent and Alan were always your champions, always your cheerleaders. Your mother taught you what it means to love fiercely, to advocate, to always stand up for the people you love, no matter who you piss off in the meantime, excuse my language. That priority is family. You do the right thing. Someone like Millicent, with an indefatigable spirit, is an individual who will forever remain in the hearts of those who will continue with the business of life, and that is you. Nancy, just before we walked over, we were talking about her here in this casket, and Alan, you were seeing the casket being lowered and thinking about her being okay. But this was the body in which she lived so many years, the vessel through which she did all of these incredible things in her life, how she loved. But we do not bury her. The essence of her cannot be buried. And when we put soil on the grave, inside the grave, we do that because it's a Jewish way of taking care of our loved ones who cannot take care of themselves and cannot cover themselves. They are exposed. It is honoring our deceased and our loved ones. But remember, we cannot bury the buoyancy of that spirit. Impossible. Impossible. So we come visit her. You come visit her. Pay her tribute. The tradition is also to come right before the High Holy Days, in between Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur sometimes. Come visit her. But when you walk away from this cemetery, just know you're taking her memory with you. You're not leaving her here. I know everything happened pretty quickly in these past few weeks. Alan, you've had kind of a compass of what's been going on, and you said when we talked just yesterday, you said, you have to say it now because you don't know if you're going to get a chance to say it again. And what you meant was, you have to say I love you. You have to tell the stories. You have to tell your loved ones how important they are to you. That comment wasn't lost on me, and it wasn't lost on your family either. Say it again, and say it some more. Danny, you just did that. So did you all. We know not everybody can be here today, and many of you are watching virtually. I know family is big and far and wide, but you are here too in spirit, and know we all feel your love today. Zichrona livracha. May Millicent's memory be an enduring blessing to each one of us. And let us say, Amen. Millicent is survived by her loving and doting husband, Alan, by Lindsay and Aaron and Nancy, devoted grandmother of Blake and Sevda, Jesse and Aaron, Amy, and Danny and Catherine, and Jen and Jason, and Mike and Gabrielle, great-grandmother of Sadie and Jonah and Asa and Leo and Julian and Fen and Colin Jack. She's survived by her sister Myrna. Many people who will be able to breathe life into her legacy. Let us just take a moment as we consider her life and the blessings that she brought to each one of us. Share with you this modern meditation. When I die, give what's left of me away to children and old men that wait to die. And if you need to cry, cry for your brother walking the street beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give to them what you need to give to me. I want to leave you something better than words or sounds. Look for me in the people I've known or loved. And if you cannot give me away, at least let me live in your eyes and not in your mind. You can love me most by letting hands touch hands, by letting bodies touch bodies, by letting go of children that need to be free. Love doesn't die, people do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. I invite you now to rise as you are able for the chanting of El Malei Rachamim, the memorial prayer.
Aaron, help me out, okay?
You can get up.
You guys, 1, 2, 3. You don't have
Only
to.
he doesn't have to. It's okay. It's all right.
Terrible, I can't even stand up.
That's okay.
Yep. El male rachamim shochein bamromim amsei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina bemalot kedoshim mutorim kezoar rakia mazirim et nishmat Millicent Kleinman Shalach La'olama Began Eden Tehei Menuchata Ana Bala Rachamim Hastireha Beseter Knafecha Leolamim Utror Bitror Achayim Et Nishmata Adonai unachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of our dear Millicent Kleinman, who has gone to her eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May her soul be bound up in the bond of life. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. We now turn to the mourner's Kadash. You know, some of you may have the card with you. It is a tradition. It was of charging the closest relatives, Lindsay and Nancy and Alan, to recite the Kadash. Anyone else is invited to join along too. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala v'zman kari v'imru Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei omayah yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata dameran be'alma v'imru Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Oseh shalom b'mromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, comfort to all who are bereaved, we say together, Amen. At this time and place, we'd like to invite family to participate in the filling of the earth. Family includes Don and Marlene Roscoff. Every time we talk Don, he always reminds me, she was my cousin, and I know how close you all feel to her and feel about your family. So we now invite family members, spouses are invited to as well, to put some soil into the grave.
Sit down, Renee.
Touch it. Don't have to get up. Just touch it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay.
Grandchildren.
Wow. God. Barbara? Barbara? I want Barbara to do it.
else who wishes to step forward and put some in?
Careful.
I wasn't sure if people were watching live or not, so. But I think it's just being recorded. Can you share it with us?
Good, thank you.
We'll do one on behalf of everyone who can't be here right now, family
Good,
members.
I would like that.
For everybody.
Okay,
This concludes our service.
thank you, Rabbi.
You
Very
know,
nice.
we're going back to light the Shiva candle. I'll be joining you
At
there
the house.
for a few minutes. Back to the house, okay?
Okay, good, thank you.
Of course, and maybe we can all return again